Totally independent. It's time for another DJ Elf 7 candidate interview.
Ladies and gentlemen, stop everything. It's a DJ Elf 7.
Hey, what's up? This is DJ Elf 7 with candidates from all across the country for something called the Unified Platform for 26. I'm quite excited about this candidate. He's got some pretty good qualifications behind him, but I'll let him tell him about that yourself. So why don't you introduce yourself and tell us why you're running?
Sure. My name is Kevin Ryan, and I'm running for the United States Senate in Illinois. I'm a Marine Corps veteran who spent 5 years on active duty, 5 years in the reserve. That brought me to Afghanistan, Africa, Eastern Europe, and the Pentagon. My last assignment was on the personal staff for General Eric Smith, the Commandant of the Marine Corps. I was about to receive orders to the Defense Intelligence Agency when I decided to turn down those orders and move back home to run for office because Donald Trump was reelected. I thought that I could better serve my country by running for office and trying to reform the Democratic Party, reform our politics to make our country move forward in the right direction. So that's why I moved home. While I was in the Marine Corps Reserve, I also taught Chicago Public Schools for 4 years. I taught U.S. government, history, and politics. And I also, as a civilian, worked for the U.S. Treasury Department in Washington, D.C. I was a policy advisor on the Committee for Foreign Investment in the United States. I went to school at the University of Illinois, where I earned a bachelor's in history and a minor in education. And I also earned graduate degrees from the University of Oxford in diplomacy and Georgetown University in national security policy. That's a good summary of my background.
I just know I worked with the longest monthly congressman in New York State and U.S. history, including Vincent Moore, the first man freed on DNA evidence in Philly, Pennsylvania history. And going over your website, what's your website again? Runwithkev.com?
That was our first domain, and then there's this Kevin Ryan, another Kevin Ryan in Illinois, nonetheless, who gave us the domain kevinryan.com. So both work, but I now say kevinryan.com because it's a little bit easier and straightforward.
Okay, and I saw that in your criminal justice reform policy, you said that you were personally been affected by some wrong things going on in the justice system, and I'm working on those too. I don't know if you want to go into that, but it's good that you've actually experienced injustice as well.
Yeah, essentially, my brother struggled with mental health and addiction, and he was sentenced to time in the Cook County Jail when he should have been receiving treatment. As soon as he was released, he overdosed and died. And I think it's a good example of how our criminal justice system reaches for punishment before it does for treatment, especially when it comes to drug users. And I'm a big proponent of changing the entire culture of our criminal justice system, especially for our incarcerated population, to move away from punishment and move towards restorative justice and rehabilitation and returning citizens to the community so that they can contribute to society.
I do appreciate that. I'm sorry about your loss. And, once again, there's a lot of, I know people need justice, but, lives are shattered inside and people don't really know what's going on in there, but you do, and I appreciate that. All right. The first half of the interview is really learning about yourself as a candidate. So do you have a political ideology? Recently Zoran says he's a socialist. Some people say they are, some people aren't really about ideology. But do you have a political ideology that frames your stuff?
Yeah, I'm not one for isms or ideology necessarily. I consider myself a New Deal Democrat, and you might see FDR over my right shoulder here. He was very similar. He never really embraced the word socialism, even if his policies might have been socialist. And I kind of feel the same way. I focus on policies and how they affect people, and not necessarily ideologies. Because if we become strictly rigid to an ideology, we might stray away from how policies are affecting people and focus more on the ideology. So I consider myself a New Deal Democrat. I believe in direct federal spending into our communities, that the government is the solution, not the problem. And I support a large government that helps provide services for the people. His New Deal was the foundation of the modern Democratic Party, about making our government work for all of us and not just the ultra wealthy. And we've moved away from that over the last century, in this second Gilded Age, where money has been concentrated in the hands of a few, and social services have gone down, union membership has gone down. And we just look at the things that we benefit from today: Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security. along with some other initiatives that's still around. Those things all came from the New Deal and the government working for us. And I just like how FDR approached the problem of the Great Depression as government is the solution, not the invisible hand of the free market, because that clearly did not work. And I know some people will argue that FDR's policies did not save us from the Great Depression, that it was, World War II. Well, what was World War II except for extraordinary government spending and government programs? So it was FDR's policies of the government being the solution, not the problem. And I think that's the biggest dissonance between Republicans and Democrats today, is that Democrats think the government is the solution and Republicans think it's the problem. And
government is not the solution to our problem. Government is the problem.
Who would you rather trust? The hands of the ultra wealthy, just a few people that concentrate power and wealth, or public services in the government? So I would rather choose the government that is publicly or service oriented, as opposed to corporations that are profit oriented.
I appreciate that answer. I have a lot of differences with your answer, but really this is to find out about your positions, not mine. So we're going to keep it on there. What are you most proud of accomplishing that's relevant to this job, right? Please don't say your kids, something like that, right? I know but in terms of management or in terms of political leadership, what are you most proud of accomplishing?
My most proud accomplishment are my students. I stay in touch with quite a few of them still, and there's a handful of students too that were having a real rough go when they were in my classroom, and seeing their success now and knowing that I played some sort of role in that is there's no greater feeling than that. That's truly how teachers get paid. It's later on when you get those emails and messages and letters about like how you helped students get through an issue.
How long were you a teacher?
4 years.
Okay. Just so you know, I also worked on Jamal Bowman's campaign.
When we needed help, this guy actually stepped up, Big shout out to Jamal Bowman. I mean, you know that I'm rocking with Republicans right now, but honestly, I appreciate someone who stands by the principle. So people can talk bad about. I'm not about a party line. I'm about people that's true to their heart and helping my people out. And Jamal Bowman's helped out my people. Mark Stafford right here. Thank you so much, man. You a real one.
Listen, we got a lot more work to do, but it's about the people, not parties. People over party all the time.
What are your areas of expertise and why is it needed for your constituents?
So I guess my areas of expertise would be education, national security, foreign policy, because that's where I've worked in, right? I've served on the front lines of education as well as the front lines of war. And I served overseas in Europe, representing the U.S. government. I represented the Treasury Department on CFIUS, Committee of Foreign Investment in the United States. And I studied international policy and foreign affairs. I wrote my dissertation on conflict resolution in Northern Ireland. And I've substantial experience abroad. So I think that's really important because in my race particularly, I'm the only veteran. I'm the only veteran, and I'm the only one who's worked in the Pentagon. I studied and analyzed the national security budget. And so I know there's places where we can save money and direct money from the military industrial complex towards social services that can help our people. And I just think it's important to have that perspective of knowing how we can reapportion money without sacrificing national security. And I think I have that unique perspective.
Awesome. I'm about to hit the policies section, but is there anything else that you want people to know about yourself before we head into asking about your policies?
No, I think we covered it.
Okay, so just so you know, I work with a large coalition of different people because, as a minority in a democracy related, right? We're really in a republic, but democracy doesn't help minorities. It helps the majority, right? So we need coalitions to win. So I'm going to ask for my partners first. And, I'm going to ask about my own issue first, to tell you the truth, because I've been having a lot of problems with the anti-war movement. When we look at Israel-Palestine, there are many areas of conflict, such as Korea, or you talked about, right, writing your dissertation on what's going on in Ireland, right, Congo, right? What is your vision for peace in the face of foreign domestic interference? You know that there's sometimes countries that are donating large amounts of money to protect their interests in our Congress and elected officials like yourself. How can you, and once again, coming from military, you also have knowledge of have you served in combat zones or?
Yeah. So to answer your question, Sorry, were you still going?
No, that's great. Now, so you really know about what's going on the ground, which a lot of
Yeah, I was in
don't.
Afghanistan. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what's your vision for peace?
Well, to answer your question about domestic foreign influence, that goes back to like the whole core of my campaign about taking money out of politics, establishing campaign spending limits, and ending super PACs as we know them. That would require a constitution amendment, but I do believe it's possible to get that done. And I do think that we've seen, especially with the Israel-Gaza conflict, how much that the Israel lobby controlled Congress as it continued to funnel arms and funding to the Israeli Defense Forces as they're committing an ethnic cleansing, which is a genocide. And, that wouldn't be happening, I don't think, if it happened elsewhere in a different country. We would probably be closer to call it out for what it is. And I'd like to use the example of Bosnia in the 90s. Again, it wasn't as quickly that they came out and came out against the Serbian separatists as being as committing a genocide, especially in Srebrenica and elsewhere in Bosnia-Herzegovina. But if there was such a strong lobby for the Serbs in the United States, perhaps they wouldn't have done that. So, to answer your question about how do we establish peace, or how do we promote peace abroad, I mean, it definitely begins by removing any of the corrupting influence that any kind of foreign entity might be able to have on our domestic politics. And that's the same reason why we need to, on the domestic side, take money out of politics by ending the corrupting influence that big pharma or big oil, big tech, that these industries controlled by a few people have on our society. We need to end those influences. Money should not be influenced. Popular will should be the influence.
Interesting. Just something that might actually be reassuring for you is when we did this in the 22 election cycle, we actually had both parties, right? Candidates from both parties agreed. It was unanimously agreed upon that any act of war on the U.S. part should be agreed upon by a national referendum, right? That would really slow things down in terms of declaring war all the time, here and there. So
sure,
I really appreciate your experience there. Now, the next question will be, a lot of the communities that I work with, from the disabilities to people in public housing, people that's facing evictions to wrongful incarcerations, a lot of times these communities are other people are raised to be voices for us. And the people that are affected by the system are silenced for experts. How can you protect communities' access to electeds like yourselves, or the process? Why would they talk to someone who's been wrongfully incarcerated when they could talk to someone who's been in charge of multiple prisons?
I think that comes back to, again, the core issue of my campaign: money in politics. Money speaks, money is power. Members of Congress and candidates spend a third or more of their time calling donors, spending the majority of their time with donors, because 1% of donors fund 80% of all campaigns. Someone who's incarcerated is not going to be funding a campaign, so they probably would not care to talk to those people. So one way that we make government more representative and ensure that marginalized voices are heard is by removing money from the equation. Because then candidates, first we would elect better candidates that are more responsive and representative of the people. And because they're more responsive and representative, they will be more willing to talk to the person who's incarcerated than the person who owns several for-profit prisons. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Have you heard of someone named Andy Williams Jr.?
Who?
Andy Williams Jr.?
No.
He's running for Attorney General, I think, of Illinois. And I know some other candidates as well. He ran for president before. He may be able to help you in that realm. I'll be helping you to network with other candidates that are in your area to help your candidacy. I think you're pretty cool. Okay, I appreciate that answer. Next question will be, I'm one of the few activists that has a history in working on public housing since the Obama era, when the RAD Pact was passed and they agreed to end public housing as we know it in the United States. Now all the talk is about affordable housing. Mm-hmm. Would you support, public housing protects our most vulnerable, people with disabilities, people who are veterans, people that are elderly, and cannot really handle the paperwork necessary to switch them over to Section 8 or other thing, affordable housing, what they call it. Would you support public housing, aka Section 9, on a national basis?
Yeah, I support building and sustaining and facilitating more public housing. I think public housing is one part of the equation to help end homelessness, and it's very important.
Ending as we know it in the United States. New York City is one of the last places to truly have it. They have something called affordable housing now. They've replaced it with something else now. Just so you know, so it's not just more.
Yeah.
It's like it's just saving it in general. There's just none.
Yeah.
It's being phased out. Appreciate that answer. Thank you so much. I have some people that are facing eviction right now in Chelsea, but I know you got your own problems locally within Chicago. Next, another. Just so you know, I'm Republican, but I'm actually horrified at the way that trans people are being treated, and trans people face discrimination, and whether you agree with their lifestyle or not. How will you protect their fair access to government services?
Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous that we would discriminate against anyone based on anything for any kind of physical or, belief system, any physical attributes or belief system or how they live their lives. It's ridiculous that we even have to have these conversations.
Okay, let me ask you a hypothetical to try to really understand how you come up with solutions for this community.
Okay.
So let's imagine we have a public housing system. And we know a lot of times people who are trans face discrimination and they can't get into a regular place because people don't want to rent to them. I understand why, not saying it's cool. So they get into public housing and this is a hypothetical, right? They're getting beat up, stuff like that. And they end up leaving public housing. And then we interview them, we ask them why this is happening. So some people might say they want to have a quota system, right? Like if 10% of the people applying for public housing are trans and only 1% are getting in. They might, but quotas are very unpopular. They might try to say, if you could try to take all the trans people and put them into one building, but then it's like ghettoization. Can you imagine we took all the black people and put them into one building or neighborhood like that? So how do you the numbers are coming in saying that 10% of people applying for public housing are trans. How are you going to solve this situation?
Well, I mean, I would consider, like any other marginalized group, like leveraging aspects of the Civil Rights Act and the Fair Housing Act to ensure that they're protected under that, the same way that we protect anyone else who has been marginalized or discriminated against in the past. Okay. And once again, please make sure that after you develop the system, right, that people who are trans or whoever is being affected by the system or being served by the system has a voice in the ongoing stuff, right? Like they could say, oh, I fixed it. There was a law there. You're all good. No, it's not all good, right? You can see that the problems are still off, right? The implementation things are not really going through. So I really appreciate you standing up for that community. Another group that I work with is students. And the thing is that there's actually someone in Chicago who I'm working with right now. Her name's Corey Edens.
DGL7 out here. Got Corey Edens hanging out here in Washington Square Park. We telling people what's up about trying to fight government corruption and stuff like that, school corruption, student abuse.
That's right, guys.
We out here.
We have U.S. presidential candidates and candidates all over the nation supporting a meeting between myself, Corey Edens, and the CUNY chancellor and the university president of Hunter College.
Hi, I'm Darren Dionaquino. I am, as he said, a candidate for mayor.
Would you agree to support us getting a meeting, myself and Corey Edens, a meeting with the CUNY chancellor and also the Hunter University? Yeah, you support that? I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, I support that.
That's amazing.
He won't. Yeah. He may tell you no, but he's not going to tell the mayor no.
We would support a public meeting with you and the chancellors of CUNY and Hunter University president.
Would you join our voices in terms of trying to get a meeting for myself and Corey Edens with the CUNY chancellor? And also the current Hunter College president?
100% yes.
Okay, and by the way, we'll also help you in your quest to get a meeting with Columbia University's administrators as well.
Would you support us as in terms of getting myself and Corey Edens, just a meeting that's, that we could record, a meeting with the chancellor and the Hunter College president?
Yes, I would.
I really appreciate that. And I want to shout out every single U.S. presidential candidate here today. Could you join us in helping ask the president of Hunter College and the chancellor of the CUNY? And Corey, are you down for that? Would you be down for the people to get to a meeting with the president and also the chancellor of the CUNY system? Because I'm all for it.
Absolutely. I've been asking for the past 5 years.
Well, what's going on? Okay, I'm gonna let the president please help her.
I absolutely stand at the ready to help you out. Anything that I can do by way of a letter or anything, just let me know. I view the colleges as probably my biggest nemesis in the entire battle for student loan justice. They pretend that they're on the student side, and what they do is they co-opt the students, and it's just a mess.
The same strategy that was used in those days is used today. He take a Negro, so-called Negro, and make him prominent, make him a celebrity. They're not a part of the Black Revolution. They're used against the Black Revolution.
By the way, Hunter College gets about I'm just looking now, gets about $2.3 million in federal student loan revenue every year. I think it's actually quite a lot more than that in more recent years. Let me know what I can do to help.
A lot of people don't know what their rights are, and they don't know what's in the Constitution. So I also recommend that all of us and everybody watching go and pick up a copy of your Constitution and read it.
Would you support us getting a meeting with the chancellor, a public meeting with the CUNY chancellor and the Hunter College president? I would love that. I actually texted you on that.
Corey, please say your name for the record.
Hi, my name is Corey Edens. I'm shocked by the rampant corruption that exists in CUNY's rigged system of higher education, and ask that New York City Council members individually and as a body join U.S. presidential candidates and New York City mayoral candidates running in this cycle to ask for a public meeting between Chancellor Matos Rodriguez.
So I can check with this?
Yes.
Okay.
We have
Corey Edens.
Corey? A pleasure.
Me too as well, Felicia. My name's we have U.S. presidential candidates and also New York City mayoral candidates asking for a public meeting, sir. I really appreciate it, sir.
And ask that New York City Council members individually and as a body join U.S. presidential candidates and New York City mayoral candidates running in this cycle to ask for a public meeting between Chancellor Matos Rodriguez, President Nancy Cantor with myself and Ed Riley to discuss specifics related to our issues. Hunter College and CUNY never responded to pending issues never responds to pending issues when it is to their benefit, and also set up scenarios to personally antagonize students to elicit angry responses for them to be used as legal evidence, a tactic often used among corporate attorneys. I've been able to track down, despite their attempts to block my FOIA requests to find more, have been victims of this scandalous behavior. I have submitted a complaint to the New York Office of Civil Rights, and they have said that while I have a valid claim, it was not timely, and thus no action can be taken because of the institution's tactic of not responding in a timely manner. Hunter College hires an outside compliance agency, King Compliance Services LLC, directed by Maura King, who, as an attorney, has over 2 decades working in the financial investment industries. How can the same body responsible for hiring the compliance agency be trusted so as not to influence a process designed
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question.
I'm trying to get a meeting between myself, Corey Edens, and the CUNY chancellor and the president of Hunter College to talk about the treatment of students and, how often students are not really given a voice, especially when it comes to administrative abuse of students. For example, Andy Williams, who I mentioned earlier, right, who's from the Chicago area, he was a U.S. presidential candidate, and he said the federal government gives a lot of money to students for student loans so that we can give them degrees so they can be productive members of society, not to determine their politics. If the government if they're withholding their degrees because of their political stance, we should just take away the school's funding, right? Even though I got these powerful, testimonies to try to help us, like I said before, powerful people in the anti-war movement who are making millions off the suffering of actual war victims. You can't name a person from Palestine. You can't name a person from Congo. You can't name a Korean anti-war activist because we're being pushed out the way by people who have not been affected by these issues, who will stop when they're told to stop and will go when they're told to go. You know what I mean? And that's why we're always failing and we never get because the people that are impacted have no voice in this. So once again, would you support Corey Edens is actually a vocal, and if you want to learn more, that's fine, right? But I'm just asking
I don't really know anything about this, whatever you're asking about.
That's a smart answer, and as we get to know each other more, we'll get that. But don't worry about that. Yeah, that's completely fine, and I really respect that answer. By the way, thank you for not just pandering. That's so disgusting. I really appreciate that. That's very cool. All right. Also, the people that have been wrongfully incarcerated, we know that the metrics on, I think black people are incarcerated 5 times the rate of white people, not saying that they've been definitely impacted by poverty and other things, but there is some discrimination going on in the criminal justice system, and openly sometimes what's it called? The qualified immunity protects prosecutors and judges from wrongdoing, right? So would you support a review of cases for the people who have been determined to be wrongfully incarcerated that have been supported by powerful people like Otis Johnson or Reverend Keith Gadsden, who's freed by the longest serving state senator in New York State history, Velmanetti Montgomery? Would you support, not saying that you support their freedom or their exoneration, but would you support a review of their cases?
I'm a strong supporter of the Innocence Project. And so I know that there's been many people who've been wrongfully incarcerated, and the most tragic are those who face the death penalty, and those in some states that still have the death penalty who are sitting on death row seeking those reviews. I totally stand by the Innocence Project and the work that they do. And we have some local nonprofits in Illinois who do the same stuff. So I absolutely support reviewing cases that they have they've gone through and say this is we believe in representing these people.
I love that I can actually name an organization without being meaning that, right. The fact that Innocence Project is very, very cool. I really like that a lot.
Yeah.
A lot of candidates have no specifics because they've never done anything. It's so disgusting. You're very cool. I appreciate you. Yeah. All right. And the last group that I work with is disabled. Right now, a lot of times disability advocacy focuses on people who are in wheelchairs because they don't have communication barriers. So I really focus on the deafblind, and right now we're trying to get something called a co-navigator program. So businesses can have maybe some type of text-to-speech devices to try to help people who have who are deafblind, right? Would you support programs like that to try to help the deafblind get better access to just everyday services?
Yeah, I mean, I would be surprised if that wasn't already covered under the ADA, but sure. I mean, if it is, make sure that we are enforcing the ADA where it's not being complied with. But if it's not, definitely support expanding the ADA to extend services to people who are deaf and blind. In fact, I studied American Sign Language at university, and so I got to know that culture pretty well, and it's very cool.
Hey, that's very cool, man. You seem like my kind of guy. I really like that, man. I think that one of the reasons why the Republicans got beat up in this time was because Trump's been cutting everybody's SNAP and all these other things. What's your position on, that's also a significant part of the federal budget, what's your position on entitlements like Social Security, SNAP, welfare, things like that?
Well, you could probably guess as a New Deal Democrat, where my stance on that is. I believe the government is the solution, and it has has a responsibility to play a role into ensuring that every American has everyone who works earns enough to live, raise a family, save for the future, and enjoy whatever time they have on this planet. And that's just simply not the case right now. If you look at the federal minimum wage and people who are paid below minimum wage, especially Walmart's the biggest abuser of this. Walmart relies on the earned income tax credit, basically a corporate subsidy that we as taxpayers are paying their employees because Walmart will not pay their employees a livable wage. So that's when the government has to come in and step in to help uplift people. But with the case of Walmart, we need to, instead of just giving people the earned income tax credit, we need to make Walmart pay their people a living wage.
Okay, you're right about that. And it's not just Walmart, it's also McDonald's and all these other groups that really poor. But aren't they also doing that to veterans? Aren't veterans also or even armed service members on welfare and stuff like that?
Not welfare, but there are at the junior level, some service members will qualify for. I believe they can qualify for SNAP if they're depending on.
That's pretty crazy, though.
Depending on a couple of factors, because if you're a junior enlisted, you're living in the barracks, your meals are provided for you. I think if you're really young junior enlisted and you're living out in town because you're married and you don't have access to the chow hall. I'm not exactly sure, but I've heard stories of it. That's why I say that it might be the case, but I'm not entirely sure. At least in my experience, I didn't have any service members who were relying on SNAP benefits.
Yeah, it depends on the local rollout. Yeah, some places are better than others. Some states have a lot of times the federal will allocate to the states, and the states will roll out. Some localities.
Well, what I mean is that the military ensures that its people are fed, right?
Sometimes.
there's food provided on bases and stuff like that. I think it would definitely be in the minority of cases where for several factors that perhaps someone isn't getting access to food in the military.
But those people need to be protected as well, right? So, sure. Appreciate that. Yeah. All right, cool. So, look, those are, besides the entitlements, the military, we already asked about that. We're going to have some discussion panels later on to really, learn more and exchange more. I thought you were a very cool interview. I'll probably ask you more later on, but that's really most of my questions for this one. What's your, I know you said you have your website, kevinryan.com.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and runwithkev.com. Do you also have anything else you want to share as in terms of like how people can learn more about you or getting stuff like that?
No, that's the best place to start. Just go to kevinryan.com. All of our socials are linked there. So if people want to follow us, the website is more of a just a landing page. It's got all of our basic information, our stances and issues, and my story and everything. But if you want to follow the live campaign, the social media is the way to do it. So whatever your preferred social media is, just follow us that way, and you can see the daily updates of where we're going, what we're doing, and what we're talking about.
Okay, and now that people have your information, do you have anything cool coming up? You got I know you've already spoken at several fairs. I know you've spoken at on the news. You got anything cool coming up?
Yes. So tonight we're going to an Illinois Young Democrats social in Chicago. Wednesday we're going out to Peoria for a WTTW interview. And then I would have to look at our calendar for post-Thanksgiving just because everything is so jam-packed that I can't keep it all on the top of my head.
Okay.
But we will be going. Actually, we will be going downstate after Thanksgiving, down to Marion and Centralia, and then a little bit over by the Ohio River. So if you're from Little Egypt, we'll be in your area the week after Thanksgiving.
I've been in the political scene for a long time, and I know that Dick Durbin's actually stepping down from office. Usually, what happens is that the people who are in his office will run for office, and they'll basically win as incumbents, right? Even though he's not allowed to run again, someone will run from his office. Is that happening right now? I saw there's a big primary. There's a lot of people in the primary so far. How many people are you running against? 10 or 11 in the primary so far?
Something like that. But as far as I know, none of them work for Durbin.
I think you have a lot of I saw there's some pretty experienced political people you're running against, but I think you're also a top pick. I like your qualifications. So I will put
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And thank you so much for your time, man. God bless. Anything?
Great.
Any questions you have for me or any last things that you want to mention for my audience?
No, I think that's it. I do got to get going here to our next event here. It starts in a few minutes.
You're in the legendary bus right there.
Yes.
Bus is, I think you're one of the candidates that really has a lot of personality and cool stuff going on. Very cool, man. I like that. So, all right, we'll be in contact soon. And thank you so much. God bless. I look forward to work with you. I think you're very cool.
Great. Thanks. Same to you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah, man, we gotta record. This is how we get through the nuclear winter. You know what I'm saying? A lot of fire.
Drop the acapella freestyle, right? You know what I mean? Yeah. I know you got it in you. Come on. This guy's dope as hell. Let's go.
I got you. Look at it. I can't help from doing myself and moving without thinking. Too much smoking and drinking. The situation I'm in got me tripping. Gotta hustle and mob, cause it's hard. Come get a job. And I can't get no helping hand from my homie, cause he changed on me over this green eye, Hone Moni. He started acting phony. I thought he knew me, but he didn't know me. Now I gotta do my dirt all by my lonely. And now the angels and demons talk to me while I sleep. Through my nightmares and dreams, I hear them when I creep. I'm the one that picked you up the instant you fell. The one that gave you the instinct to kill, for real. So the instant you fail is when I prevail. Waking up to my reflection, battling myself.
What's up? That's crazy.
Overweigh my bad ones. And will I end up in heaven or hell? Chill. Let's get it. DJ Elf, we in here, man. You're
live, Coney Island. What's up? That's how we get down. Brighton Beach, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that was fucked out. That was some old shit right there, you know what I mean?
Yeah. All right, cool.
Rockin'.
Yeah.